Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Janelle. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I am going to be doing my March wrap-up, so grab a cozy cup and let's have a book chat. So March was quite the interesting reading month for me. March was an interesting month. Let's start off with that. So my reading month started out really good, and it really kind of dwindled down. Not quality of books wise, but quality of reading time. Let's say mid-March on, stressful things personally were going on and continued to go on, and I just very much so, especially at the end of the month here, didn't have like the mental energy to put into books. Even if it's like a beautiful and enjoyable experience, I couldn't take anything else in, if that makes sense. So I really slowed down. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what? That means I'm taking more time to enjoy what I am reading. So there's always something good from that. I am, however, extremely ready and excited for April. I've very much so focused on just planning to really read what I'm excited about and to just enjoy it at the end of the day. So the first book I read in March was amazing, and it was The Odyssey by Emily Wilson. By Homer, translated by Emily Wilson. It's an amazing book. I love her translation. It was so accessible. It was so readable. I absolutely flew through this book. I thought this book would take me the whole month, and I think maybe took the first week of the month. Like, it's not even necessarily. I absolutely adored it. The way there's a constant description of dawn, of that time in the morning, and I love it. It was breathtaking to me, and I cannot wait for her to bring out the Iliad, so this was a 5-star read. Another thing as well, except for the last book that I read this month, I do have individual reviews up of each book, so if you want to see a bit more in depth, I will have all those linked in the description box below, and I'd love it if you would check them out. The next book that I read was The Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood. This book was alright. I gave it 3 stars. It existed. It was there. I overall enjoyed it, but it did kind of, I guess, lose my interest a little bit, which I was surprised at. Like, it's a very short book, but it didn't exactly hit the mark for me. But all in all, I liked it. It's the retelling of Penelope's story, Odysseus' wife, from Hades' realm, the land of the dead, the underworld. But then the next book I read was The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. Now, I'm sure so many people must be almost sick of hearing about this book. I tend to, and I don't mean this in a hoity-toity way, but I don't tend to read really hyped up books because I love finding hidden gems. I love finding hidden gems, but as well as that, typically I find really hyped up books aren't genres I would read. Typically it would be fantasy or horror, and those aren't genres I'm really invested in. But I decided I wanted to see what was going on with The Vanishing Half, and I adored it. I understand why everyone loves it so much. I think it should be required reading for like older high school students and college students and that kind of age range. I think it should be required reading, so I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. Definitely more than I thought I would. Yeah, it was educational and beautiful. So, the next book, as I'm like, I don't read fantasy. I'm starting to get into fantasy. Like, I'm like wading into the water of it. So the next book that I read was Smith of Wotton Major. So this is the second of Tolkien's works that I have read. I gave this one 4 stars. Did I say for The Vanishing Half? I gave it 5, if I hadn't said. But Smith of Wotton Major, this is an extremely short book. I did not realize that. It looks around the same size as Roverandom, but the majority of it is actually like notes on it and an essay about it and like a discussion point of the story. And I wasn't looking for that. I genuinely just wanted the story as it originally was. So it's like 55 pages long, really, really, really short. I did enjoy it. I thought it was great overall, but I preferred Roverandom. I think Roverandom just had more elements that I'm invested in. And while it was great in one way that it was short, like I read it in one night, it was, bibbidi bobbidi boo done kind of thing. I would have liked a bit more sustenance to it. It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel like things weren't tied up, but I would have liked to delve into it a bit more. Maybe go through a bit more time, or just, I just wanted a bit more. But it deals with like fairy magic and that, which is really cool, and I know that's like a niche a lot of people really enjoy, but I did prefer Roverandom. But I like this one as well. And then the last book that I read this month, I have had on my TBR. I bought it in 2019. And I hadn't read it. It was purely a cover buy, like purely a cover buy, because it's gorgeous. Yes, this is a suspense thing. But then when I really like read the description and the synopsis, I was like, okay. And I actually was kind of like later on, like, not super interested. And that's very rare. I mean, a few years ago that wouldn't have been. But now I am hyper aware of like every book that I buy. So I don't tend to buy a book if I don't think I'm going to love it. I'm very, very aware and cautious of what I spend my money on. So it was surprising that I bought a book and then looked at it and realized I didn't know much about it. And I really just got it for the cover. But, sorry, that's long-winded. It is The Dutch House by Ann Patchett. Now, when I say I just finished this, I mean I literally about half an hour ago finished this book. So there will not be a review for this because we are here now. But it's stunning. It's stunning. It's got these gorgeous sprayed edges. Like it's a beautiful, beautiful book. And I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. So that's great. It isn't a style of book that I would normally really be into, and yeah, I'm just kind of like, okay, like, I don't know, it kind of hit me with the same, I don't know, I enjoyed it more than I did the Penelope ad, but I also attribute that a lot to the audiobook. I mainly listened to it on audiobook, and there was points when I like read with the audiobook, but quite a bit of it I was just listening, and it was narrated by Tom Hanks. And it was so, so good. I really, really, really loved his narration. The way he did the voices, the way he put across the emotions, like, I'm sorry. Obviously and clearly, he is amazing. And I definitely think that upped the level of my enjoyment of the book. It's a domestic book about, it's like a domestic fiction, but also like a historical fiction. It focuses on this brother and sister, ultimately. It focuses on these two main characters. And it goes back and forth. We see, so Tom Hanks is narrating as the brother, and it's coming from his point of view. So you hear about his sister, you hear about his family, you hear about, it's him recounting his life. He'll be in the middle of talking about when he was in his 30s, and then we'll suddenly talk about a different memory when he was 15. I didn't feel like it was jagged at all. I felt like it was formatted very nicely. There were a couple moments where I was like, wait, where are we? Or who's he with? Or what's going on? But I think a big piece of that as well is like a few of the characters have similar names, and that threw me at a point, and that would be when I was just listening, and I'd be like, wait, and I'd listen, and then I'd be able to piece together what was going on and where we were and what was happening. There's things I liked, but things I wanted more of. I would have liked to have heard from other characters. Like, it is very solely focused on two characters. You do see other characters, you see other people that they know, and there's some other people that are in their lives that I wanted to get to see a glimpse of their lives more. But it's not about them. It is about these two characters. Essentially, it's not that it's a retelling of Cinderella, but like, that'll give you the right vibes. Evil stepmother kind of situation. but it was really interesting. What I really liked is it very much so tied everything up in a neat bow at the end. Like, everybody, side characters, like, you knew where everyone was. You knew about everyone and how they ended up by the end of the book. And I really like that. That's one thing I can't stand, is when a book, like, I feel like we're in the middle of it and then it ends. Like, no. I like a strong conclusion, and this gave me that. I, however, didn't feel like any part of it was surprising. And I don't know that it was necessarily meant to be. But nothing kept, like, caught me off guard. Like, there was a moment where I felt like I should have been, but I was like, okay, yeah, that happened, and it did not affect me like I expected it to. But I don't know if it's just where my mindset is, but yeah, I wasn't like surprised or shocked or whatever by anything. Like, there wasn't any point where I was like, what's gonna happen next? It never had me like gripped, but it was a really nice, just gentle, easy read that I needed at the end of the month. And I didn't know if I would get it finished in time. It is the 31st at like 11 p.m. So I got there like on the edge of the month, and if I hadn't finished it by the end of the month, it's not the biggest deal in the world. I really recommend the audiobook. What was weird or interesting about it is stuff must have changed between like publications and editions. Like, certain words and certain phrases were different to what Tom was saying. Like, they meant the same thing, but it was a different way of saying it, kind of thing. So that was really, really interesting. I hadn't come across that before, where like the audiobook didn't match the words of the book all the time. Noticeably, like, I noticed it actively like maybe around 4 times. So I don't know if that would throw anyone off, but I was fine with it. I was just kind of curious about it, but it didn't like ruin anything for me. But yeah, I gave this book 3 stars, and I'm happy I read it. Everything about the book makes a lot more sense to me now. And yeah, I wonder how April is going to go. I'm excited for it. I was very, very excited for March, but like I said, it kind of just came out and smacked me. And that's fine, that happens, but I have some books that I'm very eager to get to. I have another current read that I am almost halfway through, so I will potentially finish that by maybe the end of the week, maybe. And then get into my next reads for April, and I'm just very jazzed for it. I cannot wait. So let me know what your favorite read of the month was, if you've read any of these, and what your thoughts were. And I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye.